This is Magic Talk with Chris Lynch. Well, there was some positive news announced by the government yesterday, almost positive, and that, of course, is parents and wider family members will be able to join Ukrainians in New Zealand under a new policy covering about 4,000 people. Immigration Minister Chris Farfuri said the government made this decision, obviously, after the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. It's good news, but not good news for all Ukrainians. To discuss this, I'm joined by Christchurch resident Diana Aravina Lagova. Hello, and thanks so much for your time.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for your kindness.
You're most welcome. So initially this was seen as good news, and it is good news, but there is a grey area and it's not going to help many Ukrainians. Before we get to that, just to explain the situation, you've got family in Ukraine. Whereabouts are they and what's been happening with them?
I have my parents there in Sumy and my grandma as well. So my grandmother and my mother decided to flee from Sumy, and now they are on their way to Poltava and hopefully heading to Lviv. But my father, he decided to stay in Sumy.
The place where your family has been a place of intense shelling and bombs, correct? What's been happening?
Yeah, surrounding areas were almost destroyed by heavy attacks, and almost some regions of the city were almost destroyed, and some streets turned into just I can't find words to describe the situation there.
When was the last time you spoke to your family, Diana?
I talked to them yesterday, but they were in a bus moving to Poltava, and it was difficult to get into the bus because the buses were overcrowded and people were just lifting their kids and throwing them to push into the buses. And it was really a challenge to get into this bus. And our internet connection was often interrupted. So
it must be awful for you being so far away and also not really knowing the current situation because it's so fluid and it's changing hour by hour.
Yes, it's so difficult not to be able to go there because and to help them remotely, because my grandma, she is 86 and she still remembers the Second World War too vividly, and she is too stressed to be rational, and it's an additional pressure on my mother, and so I feel so guilty that I'm not able to help them now.
So let's discuss the current situation. So yesterday we had a reasonably good government decision allowing members of Ukrainian family to come over to New Zealand with some, with family members who are living in New Zealand. And while that sounds good in principle, it's not helpful for many Ukrainians, including yourself. Now, why is that?
I know at least 5 or 6 families here in Christchurch, including my family, who are not able to invite their relatives to New Zealand because we are here on temporary visas. We are not resident class visa holders, sadly. So we can't even complete the forms to invite them.
So you have to be a permanent resident or citizen of this country to be able to even offer support to your family back home. That sounds incredibly cruel because I would imagine, as you've just said, there are probably many Ukrainians in New Zealand that have a similar situation. They may not necessarily have permanent residency.
Yes, many people are still applying for their resident visas, as we are doing now. And some of them are still waiting for the decision regarding their residencies.
Now, and that's not necessarily as a result of yesterday's announcement. They've been waiting for their residency for a long time, right?
Yes.
Do you think the Minister of Immigration needs to change the rules so it allows family members to come to New Zealand despite the fact that they may not necessarily have permanent residency, the supporters, if you like, that are in New Zealand right now?
Yes, I would love to ask Minister of Immigration to widen this circle of people who would be granted visas, because we just need our parents here. We are not able to invite them via visitor visas or in any other way. So we can't just leave them dying there. It's an unbearable situation.
Talk to me about your current situation. How long have you been in New Zealand for, and what made you come from Ukraine to New Zealand?
We're here for almost 6 years. We came here when Russia occupied Crimea, and we decided to start our lives from a new page. I entered the University of Canterbury and I completed my PhD course here, and I successfully defended my dissertation. And I also wrote about Crimea and the period when it was transferred to the Ukrainian SSR. So my whole life is connected with Ukraine. And as a historian, as a citizen of Ukraine, I can't adjust to adapt to the situation. And being here, I hoped to help my country and my parents as well, but I am not able to do this.
And now it almost must feel like history is repeating itself for you.
Yeah, that's true. It's the second time when I'm losing Ukraine and people whom I love most.
What's it like seeing those images, Diana? Those awful images back home, and knowing you're so far away, and we can only watch in horror as we see them on the television or internet. It must be. How are you coping with all of this?
When I see Sumy and Kharkiv is a special city for me because I was born there and my parents studied there. They are both doctors. When I see all these cities completely destroyed, I feel like uh, the situation is killing me because it's difficult to recognize usual images. Or yeah, it's like destroying the whole life. So,
And seeing your home cities now in complete ruins. I can't imagine what that experience must be like. It's hard to even comprehend, isn't it?
yes, and uh, my grandma, when my parents were students, she was such a role model for me because she helped them and she was like a second mom. And losing them both now and being unable to help them, it's like emotionally draining and I can't sleep, I can't eat. The only hope is to bring them here because we have our daughters here and our youngest one, and my parents, they have never seen her like in person. She was born here.
Well, let's hope that the rules can change because, as you say, there are many Ukrainians in New Zealand that in your situation who have been here a long time but, haven't been able to get the permanent residency or citizenship required, which does mean that at this stage your family can't join you. So we'll put some information to the Minister of Immigration, see if we can get some information back from him.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Dinah, I
Thank
thank
you.
you very much for being on the program, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you so much.